And to all the members of the families here present who have suffered loss, though we share your grief, your pain is unimaginable, and we know that. We cannot undo it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to today's episode of
The Rhetorical Oracles! Everyone's go-to podcast for answers on the mysteries of literacy.
For the answers to all your burning questions, listen to us deep dive into the intricacies of literature and analyze what makes certain speeches, stories, and writings so effective.
Without further ado, we're your hosts, Frederick
and Finnick, and today we'll be playing our favorite game,
Which Rhetoric is Betteric?
Take it away, Rhetoric.
We have reached our final battle of the effective rhetoric tournament. It's been a tough competition so far, folks, but we've managed to narrow it down to just two strong and impactful contenders.
President Bill Clinton's Oklahoma bombing address and Emma Gonzalez's March for Our Lives speech.
Personally, I think there's a clear winner.
Now, Frederick, you know the rules. First, we have to analyze their use of rhetoric. And plus, I think we both know Gonzalez's rhetoric choices were much more impactful.
Are you kidding? Clinton's speech was way more effective on his audience. Gonzalez's speech was way too short.
They still took a definitive stance and made a powerful statement that left audiences starstruck.
Clinton is the clear winner.
Well, it seems we're in quite the predicament, folks.
An analytical riddle of sorts.
This will have to be a real battle of a literary prowess. But really, Clinton? What makes his speech so effective?
Where do I begin? Clinton had to make this speech after the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing, a bombing that killed 200 American people. It was a domestic attack that had to be addressed with humility and tact, and Clinton, with his authority and credibility as President of the United States, needed a way to unify and comfort his people. Clinton set out with the goal of comforting his people, and his speech does just that, provide a ton of reassurance and comfort to those who are mourning.
Okay, but what rhetorical choices does he make? What sets him apart?
Firstly, Clinton masterfully utilizes first-person pronouns in his speech that make him feel more human or personal to the audience, allowing them to better connect with him by viewing him as a friend or neighbor. The pronouns he uses, for instance, our, us, and we, show his audience that he, too, is experiencing the pain, uncertainty, and anguish that this catastrophe has generated. He empathizes with the people of Oklahoma, making himself one of them, bringing himself to their level, while still providing the comfort and reassurance that he can as the president. He is not detached from the struggles of his people, and he uses words to show that and become just a regular citizen while assuring them that they, nay, we, will get justice for these heinous actions. For instance, Clinton states, "And to all the members of the families here present who have suffered loss, though we share your grief, your pain is unimaginable. And we know that. We cannot undo it." This quote illustrates how Clinton emphasizes that he, too, is feeling what his people are going through, making him relatable and more human to his listeners. This lets the audience better understand Clinton's message on a personal level, allowing his words to better comfort and reassure them in this trying time.
That's cool and all, but is that really all he does? Make himself feel more personal?
Not at all. Clinton also uses many instances of religious or spiritual language to appeal to the majority Christian population in Oklahoma at the time, thus providing more comfort and reassurance to the families that lost loved ones. Though not every victim or person in Oklahoma is Christian, this allows families to think they are in a better place or being taken care of by the God or religion that they've subscribed to. This humanizes the victims by mentioning their loss, emphasizing their time on earth while still acknowledging their beliefs. Clinton says near the end of his speech, "It was a dogwood with its wonderful spring flower and its deep, enduring roots. It embodies the lesson of the Psalms, that the life of a good person is like a tree whose leaf does not wither." In this quote, Clinton alludes directly to the Bible story of the Psalms to spiritually connect to the beliefs of the audience. He compares the people lost in the tragedy to a tree that does not wither, providing comfort to the families, implying that through their ideology or religion, their loved one is never truly gone. The tree does not wither, and neither will their loved ones. This allows the audience to connect with their own ideals to Clinton's speech, generating a sense of familiarity and comfort in the teachings of their religion, and therefore unifying and reassuring his audience.
Well, that could be effective. But couldn't the religious tones work against his speech? I mean, not all of Oklahoma is Christian. Even if the majority of Oklahoma is Christian, it's unreasonable to assume everyone involved in the tragedy was someone of monotheistic ideology. His use of religion, although effective to those with similar ideology, creates a disconnect between people who are not religious, and therefore the entire speech loses any of its meaning and any comforting effect it could have had.
I agree with you, Finnick. Using religion was a bold and even risky move to make. But almost 70% of Oklahoma's population is Christian, and though he may lose some of his audience, for the most part, his words would reach the majority of his listeners. No speech or story matches everyone's ideals 100%, but even so, the majority would find these ideals comforting and familiar, unifying the fractured community.
Did he make any other choices?
He made one consistent choice throughout the entire speech: his appeal of the pathos of his listeners. Like in the earlier quote, Clinton says, "You know them in ways that all the rest of America could not. And to all the members of the families here present who have suffered loss, though we share your grief, your pain is unimaginable, and we know that. We cannot undo it." In this quote, Clinton mentions both the emotions of the families himself and the rest of the nation, drawing a connection between them that creates a sense of relatability and community. He uses this connection to stimulate pain, fear, and sadness of Oklahomans, and therefore invoke pathos. Clinton uses pathos to sympathize and reveal the emotions of the audience, allowing the audience to use their own feelings and begin to relate to the messaging of the speech, and therefore better receive Clinton's message and tone of comfort and reassurance.
Those are really powerful choices. Clinton was really able to bring himself and his audience together by creating such a gentle, tight knit sense of community. Still, I think Gonzalez's speech made a much more powerful choice.
Do tell, why should Gonzalez win?
First, I think context is important. The speaker, Emma X. Gonzalez, is an American gun control activist who survived the Parkland shooting, giving them first-hand experience and reasoning for the speech, representing the true trauma and aftermath that such events can leave. The speech was made as an introduction to the 2018 March for Our Lives protests in Washington, D.C. The speech was given a month and 10 days after the Parkland shooting, which prompted the protests and the creation of the speech to fight against the lack of gun control and regulation in the United States. Throughout the entire piece, they speak with a tone of anger, betrayal, and sadness that is clear not only through words, but also through physical expression. The audience can really feel her anger and sadness.
It seems like a hard pill to swallow, but I think the emotion of the speech could be really impactful.
Emma's speech is short and concise. However, it includes a large amount of repetition, especially the repetition of the names of gun violence victims from the Parkland shooting, followed by the phrase, "would never." These repetitive phrases serve to generate the urgency, anger, and importance of the speaker's ideas to create more regulation for guns in the United States. In their speech, Gonzalez cries, "Aliana Petty would never. Carol would never. Chris Hickson would never. Luke Hoyer would never. Martin Duque Anguino would never. Peter Wang would never. Alyssa Aldef would never. Jamie Gutenberg would never. Meadow Pollock would never." Gonzalez uses this repetition to emphasize the loss of life and pain caused by gun violence in order to generate urgency and change in policies. This choice shows the loss and impact of gun violence and the need to create regulation, encouraging audiences to go out and call for change from policymakers and their government leaders, ultimately fulfilling their goal of creating new policies on gun control. Not only this, but Gonzalez also uses personal anecdotes and retellings of the day of the shooting to convey the horrendous and cruel events of gun violence that have become all too common, emphasizing the importance of policies controlling guns in the United States. Gonzalez opens her speech by stating, 6 minutes and about 20 seconds. In a little over 6 minutes, 17 of our friends were taken from us, 15 were injured, and everyone, absolutely everyone, in the Douglas community was forever altered. This quote allows the audience to understand and visualize a fragment of the events victims had to endure, encouraging audiences to sympathize and feel the urgency and importance of gun control policy. This then allows the audience to go out and protest, email their officials, and push for gun control policies to be implemented.
I see. First-hand accounts have always helped me to better understand the importance of a message. It makes speeches feel more personal and like a story. But did Gonzalez make any other choices?
They did. Perhaps one of their most impactful choices was their use of a long silence after their 2 introductory paragraphs, which is around 6 minutes and 20 seconds long, the same length as the shooting that the speaker had survived. This decision not only serves as a moment of silence, but also functions as a tool to generate the feeling of uncertainty and fear that gun violence victims must endure. Emma utilizes this pause in order to generate the same feeling of uncertainty and fear that Parkland victims endured, allowing the audience to sympathize and connect with the need for gun policy. Emma ends her speech with, "Fight for your lives before it's someone else's job," breaking the silence and conveying the message of her pause. The decision to hold a moment of silence pulls the audience directly into the extended period of time of uncertainty that gun violence victims had to go through, entrapping the audience and allowing them to sympathize. This then allows listeners to better understand the message that Emma is conveying, that gun control is necessary.
Wow, that speech is a really hard listen. It really leaves a lasting impact. The pauses and the mention of real victims emphasize how prevalent an issue this is. However, I can't help but feel that the short length of the speech inhibits it from fully reaching the audience. The speaker shares very little about their own experience, thoughts, or fears, and it makes the speech feel disconnected from the audience.
I agree. Emma had a great opportunity to share how deeply gun crime has affected the social, mental, and governmental aspects of the United States. They could have used their platform to share the effects and emphasize what needs to improve in order for these issues to be fixed, all while still including that vital and impactful 6 minutes of silence. I think I know which rhetorical devices were the most effective.
Well, then, we know our winner.
The moment you've all been waiting for. The final verdict. Our winner is
Clinton! I will say, Gonzalez's speech was incredibly impactful, both in messaging and execution. The long pause creates this uncomfortable and uncertain moment of tension that beautifully portrays the fear, anguish, and endurance victims of gun violence have, all creating a lasting impact on the audience, likely leading them to urge for new policy. The use of repetition also beautifully shows the importance and the immense loss that gun violence brings, and as is the storytelling that really draws in the audience to make them feel present in the moment. However, the speech fell short. Gonzalez's speech, though impactful, falls short due to its length and lack of verbal wording. There's a distinct lack of variation in the tone and words of the speech as a whole. This minimal approach to such a debated, hurtful, and sensitive topic doesn't really allow the audience to fully connect to the traumas and woes of the speaker, creating a disconnect between the audience and the minds of the audience, meaning that the message does not fully reach the emotional depth that it should.
I must say, I'm kind of shocked by our decision. I thought that Emma's execution and message were so prevalent. However, I concede that Clinton was much more effective in unifying his audience. Although he used religion, his choice appealed to the large majority of his listeners, unifying them under a shared ideology and community, allowing him to better comfort them in their time of need. He is incredibly credible to speak as the President of the United States, and he uses a constant, empathetic, and reassuring tone that eases the minds of his citizens. His use of pathological appeals better connected to his audience on a personal level, making the message seem more relevant to the listeners. Finally, his masterful use of first-person pronouns allowed the audience to view him as more of a friend than a speaker, allowing his message to be understood and accepted with ease, therefore accomplishing his goal of comforting his people.
Well, both speeches certainly put up a fight, and were very important for listeners to hear.
What a fantastic debate. A wonderful deep dive into rhetoric.
That concludes the Effective Rhetoric Tournament. We're so glad you tuned in.
Follow us on our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Patreon, and Spotify at the Rhetorical Oracles.
Oracles out! Try out Audible today. You can have 30 days of free listening for all your audiobook needs. Visit the link in our website